Hey folks, it's Tim the Toolman, and we're back again with another episode of Car Show and Tell. And I think this is part 16 of the C4 Corvette saga. And where we're at today is, well, we've started a new bit of kit here. We're going to do the suspension, front and rear. All new stuff. We've got basically a new one of everything. New springs, new shocks, new bushings, new ball joints, new bearings. Yeah. If you didn't watch the last video, go back and watch that. We stripped everything out of the front end, except for the tie rods. And even that I got new boots for. So, but hey, here we go. The next part of this is, since we've got everything out, we've got to get our control arms rebuilt, or upper and lower control arms, right? Because we've got new bushings for that, and we've got to get the old ones out. Oh, and ball joints too, since we got new ball joints. New BJs, those are always great. Anyway, get your head out of the gutter. Here we go. Those are the lower arms as they came out of the car, so we've got to get those disassembled, and then we'll show you how we can press the ball joint out of it. So let's get started on that. Okay. Whoop. You know what? Let's turn this around. I gotta figure out how I can get this thing to a point. I've got an idea. Hang on. Alright. What we've got to do first is just take all this ancillary stuff off. So, our sway bar link here. Come on now. What happened? My can don't work. What? Tarnation? Yeah, now it really works. Slow down. So, let's juice up our fasteners here. Good grief. 1 minute it will depress, and the next minute it will just make a mess over all the floor. Why don't I? Okay. That's not a 13. What do I have here? 13. Let's try a 15. Now that I've sprayed everything. I got the whole thing spinning. 15. I'll put a wrench on this. And that's out. Place this. Now I think we can use our 13. Yep. Well, I got them. Let's do that. 13. That don't want to come out. Is this sucker threaded in? I'm gonna feel real stupid if it's threaded in. Ha. today. There we go. That can went from doing nothing, next to nothing. Of course, the other arm came apart without any issues. These sorts of problems only happen when I start the camera. So if you ever wonder why half the crap that I do is off camera, yeah, that's why. Not because I don't want to show you this stuff, but because I just don't want anything to go wrong. You know? Oh, for crying out loud. You know what? Leave it in there. That's the way it's going to be. Well, there's probably another way to go about this. Right? Let's take this plate off here. How much you want to bet those bolts want to come out? Let's try. Well, I know that one's spinning, so off that comes. Yeah. What's wrong with this one? Yep. Another one don't want to come out. I don't have a torch here. There we go. There. Maybe we'll just leave that bolt in, since it's going to be stubborn. I'm guessing it's just kind of galvanically corroded itself in there. Well, I'm giving up on that one. Well, we got this plate off. Oh, we gotta get this apart. So we'll set that off to the side for now. And taking this lower sway bar bushing out, so we can press that old bushing out of it. But I'm going to keep the bolts where they belong, so that they don't get mixed up with any of these other ones. Hopefully. Oh, for crying out loud. Some of these go right back on, some don't. Okay. Oh, Christ. This ain't easy on the back anymore. Now, that leaves us with our ball joint here. Right? And we need to get this pressed back out so we can get the new ones in And it's not really any problem with the ball joint itself. They're not overly worn, but at least the one on the other side, the boot was torn, and this one looks to have some slight dry rot cracks to it as well. So I figured it would just be prudent to get some new ones, get them replaced while I'm here. So let me get my paper towel. Okay, the best way you get these ball joints out is to get you one of these kits from Harbor Freight, okay, with the clamp and all the other gizmos to press them out. This is the less expensive of the two kits, and it's flexible enough so far for what I've needed it to do. And you might look at this and think at first that there isn't enough room in the throat of this thing to do the job, but if you stop and think about it for a little bit, you can make it work. And I find it's easiest to just right here above the retaining ring, we're just going to cut this boot straight through and take it off. So just watch your fingertips and get yourself some paper towels to clean up your knife when you're done. Now that I mention that. Once that's cut off, you just throw that away. Right? Little paper towel. Wipe the grease off your blade with it. And put that away. And then we're going to slide that section over this. Okay. I'll put that over it so that the shank of the ball joint is in this hollow part. And then we've got to back this out fairly far. Basically, the whole way. And then the largest collar here is what you need to form a pocket on the bottom side of it. And we'll run our jack screw back in here. Get that lined up. And give it a small tighten. And you don't need anything big. You can actually do this with hand tools. Okay, so put this on here and just snug it up, and then put a knee on the arm here, back here, and then just use your body weight on the wrench. So let me slide that over. Okay. I have my knee back here on the part of the control arm that's closest to the ground, and then I'm just going to put my weight on the end of the wrench. So you just kind of straddle this thing on all fours and slowly tighten it up, and it will eventually pop this joint out. And if you keep the weight of your body evenly spread on the wrench handle, it doesn't hurt as bad. It doesn't hurt your palm as bad anyway. And it starts out kind of tough at first, and then as it loosens up, it gets a little easier as you go. You can tell when it's getting ready to come out. Right there. There. No big bang. Just a sad little and it's out. Okay. And there you have it. This can go in your scrap bucket. So let me put that in there. I'll be right back. So there we have it. An empty hole in our control arm. Still kind of annoyed about that bolt. Stinking. What do you do? Well, I'm going to throw this stuff in the pile because we've still got to get our bushings out of this end. And I'm going to need a press for that. And it all needs cleaned because I say so. Alright, so now we're going to work on these upper ball joints. We got our upper arms here, and I've got one of them out, and if there's a good way to do this, I don't know what it is, and I've not figured it out. I'm not sure what GM's intention was with this, if they imagined somebody would just replace the whole arm or what, but holy crap. This is sketchy at best. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if there's a good way to do this, a safe way to do this. If there is, clue me in, because I don't know. Come here. So, I'll show you how I did it anyhow. Here's our arm. Here's our ball joint. And it's riveted. You can see it's riveted into the arm. And the new ball joints come with bolts. So, that'll make future replacement easier. I mean, this would have been a brilliant original design if it were bolted in. I don't know why they decided to rivet it in. It can only come out one way, and that's that way, away from the arm. So, here's the bottom side of our rivets. I'm just going to eyeball the center of this with a sharp punch and do the best I can to give it a punch in the center for our drill bit. I don't know what size, that one was off. I don't know what size these rivets are, if they're 1/4 inch or what, but I have to try to find some, and it's still off. I have to try to find some, I gotta check what size the bolts are that came with the new one. I want to make sure that they're roughly the same size as the holes through the upper control arm, because if they aren't, that one's a little off too. I'd like to find replacements. Anyway, I want to get bolts for these arms that are snug, right? That fit the holes and fit the ball joint, and I want to eliminate any chance of slop, right? We got round holes here. I'll have to measure them and see what bolt fits, like an M6 or something. I'm not sure what came with the new ball joint, but I get a feeling they're a little on the skinny side. Let's see. I have one here. Yeah, I know. They're Mevotex. I don't know how you say it. They were on sale. They're not moved. They don't look like they're too badly built. This is the bolt that came with it. I don't know how well that fits. Actually, it's actually pretty close in size. Well, I'm gonna roll with that then. I don't know if they're 1/4 or metric. I'll have to see later. Anywho, so here I am. I've got my rivets center punched. And I'll start with a 1/4 inch bit. There we go. Starting with a 1/4 inch bit and my foot on here. I'll start drilling out the bottom side of these rivets. Okay, using the mark that I made with my point to get them started in the center. And you don't have to have a sharp bit to do this, but it helps. Sharp bits always work better, if you didn't know. Makes me wonder. Let me see here. It's close. That's a 1/4 inch bit. I don't have a 17/64. Here's a 9/32. That's too big to fit. So I'm guessing those holes are drilled just over a 1/4 inch. So let me dump my chips off here. I must have a 9. Well, you know what? What do I have? I'll use something. I'll use the next size up. Basically, what I want to do is try to drill the head of these rivets off. Ooh, ooh, there we go. There, just like so. Get the head off. It's a little hot. Okay, let's see if I can get this one. Don't touch it. All right, buddy, have fun. Be safe. Oh, there we go. What time were you planning to be back?
I'd say somewhere around 6.
Be back before then, because we got to go have dinner at Mom and Dad's.
So what time?
4:30. There we go. Head of that one off. I think I saw it move. It moved a little bit. If it doesn't quite come off, you can take a chisel. Just get up underneath of it. Tap it off like so. Okay. Now, we got the heads of our rivets off. I'm going to tap the chips away. And that's what we're left with. The next thing I'm going to do, and you can see where this boot's split due to age, is take a sharp razor knife and work my way around this old boot, cutting it off. I'm going to take this off here first. I got it. Okay. You want the other blade? Oh. Okay. It would probably help, but I'm already stuck to this one. There we go. As long as I don't get my fingers in the way. There we go. Take that off. We'll throw that away. Now I'm just gonna wipe away some of this mess. Because I don't want to get it all over my fingers. Okay. Now comes the sketchy part.
Should I squeeze back here and just film from back there?
If you'd like to try, yeah, you can do that. Just pause it, and you can get back there. And
Okay.
Going?
Yep.
Here we are at our press. And as you can see, boy, there just isn't a whole lot of material left around the outside of this ball joint that you can get any kind of a purchase on. So that's where the sketchy part comes in. So this is kind of the way that I've did the first one. Was using large and small bearing puller jaws, and just trying to get as much of it up underneath here, up underneath the control arm surface as I could. So it is. And it's kind of a pain to get everything lined up where you want it. I think this is backwards. How did I do it last time? I don't remember. No, I don't think it was like that. I think it was like that. And it takes a little while, like you said, to kind of get it lined up and have this stud lined up with the middle of my press here, and then to have enough room underneath to for the ball joint to drop out. This is, I'm using a 30mm axle nut,
Or socket.
because axle socket, sorry, good call, to try to press down evenly on this ball joint. Now, once I have a little bit of tension on there, or a little bit of friction on there, I've kind of been adjusting the hammer to make sure my bearing pullers are as far up under there as they possibly can be.
They look pretty good from back here.
And then I've got as much material up underneath the control arm as possible. I don't want anything shooting out, and I kind of have been keeping a hand on the back of the control arm here as I apply pressure.
It's going.
And you can kind of hear it. I haven't been going very quickly, just slowly, a little bit at a time, because if anything lets go, I don't want it to be under a ton of force when it comes shooting out. So a little bit of pressure at a time until I can see the rivets start to pull out from the back side. And I see a couple of them starting to move. It seems as though the two at the front,
Yeah, these two aren't.
start coming out before the two in the rear start moving at all.
There they go.
Yep, I can see them sinking. Looks like the two in the rear are just starting to sink now.
It's coming out in an angle.
And so did the other one. It came out at an angle until it hits the plates, these steel plates under here, and then it stops.
Yeah, it's not moving no more.
Once it stops moving, I have to let off of it, take the pressure off, and I can take those two plates out. Use the two larger ones. Give myself a little bit more room here. Once those are in place, I can actually get the larger one in a little bit further around the rivets. Go ahead. So we get a little bit more purchase there.
Move on plates.
Yeah, turn those steel plates here.
That good?
And the idea is I want to give it, that ball joint, as much room
To come out.
to fall as I possibly can. So I kind of want to try to keep the steel plates as far out of the way as possible, which isn't always a reasonable goal here. Thanks.
Yep.
If I turn it that way. Oops, too far. So let's try this.
Let's tighten
Try
that
to
thing
close
first.
my valve first.
Yeah. Spinny.
Okay. Put a little pressure on again. Tap these as far underneath as they'll go. Let's see what happens. I think I hit bottom again.
Yep. This
Yep.
plate moved. Oh, okay. Let it down.
Yep.
Sorry, folks.
It's okay. It's okay. Let's see if I can tap this bottom plate further up underneath of it. Good?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Okay.
Gonna back away.
As far out as it's going to go right there, I think.
Whew, that whole assembly moved.
So, as I said,
I think it's
kind of
out.
sketch.
It's out.
There we go.
And it's out,
And
folks.
it's off.
There are rivets that we
Yippee
drilled out.
skippy. Loosen the valve. Kind of rest this on my chest. Or my gut, really.
I got you.
And then. Ugh.
And there it is.
And it's on the floor. That's okay.
Greasy goopy, yes. And this old one versus the new one.
So. There we have it. I don't know if that's the factory authorized way of doing that or not, but that's the at home, and you happen to have a press way, so
If it fits, it ships.
there you go. And it doesn't look like we dinged up our arms or anything. They're all nice and straight. Nothing's bent. Nothing's wonky. So I'll take it. All right, go ahead and pause. We're gonna figure out how to take the shaft bushings out. We're gonna go ahead and pause until I have that figured out. Okay, we got our ball joints out. Now it's time to get our bushing shaft apart. Our pivot shaft. Mount shaft? Pivot shaft? Bushing shaft? I don't know what the proper name is. It's probably all of the above. So, if you have a 3/8 extension, nice long one, go ahead and grab it. And then you're going to take that same 30mm axle nut that we used to press the ball joint out. And we're just going to put it on here, right? Just so the wrench is up. And just put your weight on it. Try to get that sucker to turn. There we go. Well, it's probably, I'm not going to have enough strength yet to pull it up, so let's do that again. Okay. Now we'll probably get it to go around. There we go. I don't know what the torque is on there, on that shaft. I do see that there's red Loctite on the nuts, though. So I shall have to remember that when it goes back together. Put it down. I don't want to lose anything. I've got to look up in the manual later and see what the torque is for all of this, you know, as we get ready to put it all back together. Oop, I got a little bit of, oh, that's just Loctite. I thought it was aluminum. It's just Loctite. So take your nut and your large washer off that side. And what did we say? This bushing here that is missing the large washer, that's the front. This is the rear of the arm. This is the front.
The rear is a split one, right?
The rear, the new bushing for the rear is split, and the new one for the front is solid.
Rear.
Okay. I'm going to just flip it over.
And repeat the process.
And pull the same trick again. Hey, that worked a little better. Yeah, I don't want this tight. Okay. And so that's how you get your nuts and your washers off your shaft. You can go ahead and pause. Okay, we see we've got a small washer here, and we've got a wide washer here. So the only place, or the only way that we can move this shaft is in that direction. Okay, since this bushing hasn't got much meat on this end of it to speak of, but this one does, I think what we're going to have to do is trim the end of this bushing off to make it a little easier to get it to come through the shaft. So let's see what we gotta do here to get this off. I think I'm the whole way through it, down to the collar.
Yeah.
So we might have to get a flat blade screwdriver or something to peel that off. So go ahead and grab something. Okay, so we got our bushing cut. And all I'm going to do is just take a flat blade here, pop it into this cut, and give it a twist to the wrist, really. Try to peel it off Oh, the tube in the middle. I can't think of what the hell it's called now. Ouch. Try not to do that. Tear that off and get rid of it. Now it's out of the way and we should be able to push our shaft down through, and this washer should come out through this side of the arm. Making it pause. I lied. I did one and I've forgotten how I've done it already. This second bushing does need cut. Otherwise it just balls up under this little washer. So we're going to cut this one too. If I ever tell you I know what I'm doing, I'm lying. Woo! That was my knife breaking. I broke my blade off. Throw me that orange knife.
Okay, yeah, I'll throw it to you, sure.
Yeah. Put the blade back in first.
Batter up. Sorry.
Camera's running. Thank you.
Hello, world.
Let me see if I can't bust the blade off this one. Okay. Try to get in here as far as I can. Now, maybe I can just tear that off like that. How the hell did I? Yeah, that's probably gonna work. There we go. Ain't this fun? Nope. Yeah, I tore most of it off. There we go. Now, we'll put it in the press. Okay, so if you don't have a press, you're probably going to want to get one. Because this is, I don't know how I do this without a press. And, oh, the other thing that makes this job easier, I found, is a couple pieces of plate steel and a bearing separator. So, just been using the bearing separator. Set this down in the press and then put the flat side of the arm against the flat side of the bearing separator and pressing with that. So we've got our small washer down. That side's going to go against our bearing separator. And I'm going to tighten that up if I can. Okay. And then I've got just a little metal cap that I've been putting on here. Just to start pressing. I don't want to deform the end of this shaft. So let's give this a shot. Ignore our press. And just when we're close, I want to center this up. Left to right, front to back. Make sure this is straight up and down. And we're going to start pressing our shaft. And it's going to take this bushing with it. And with any luck, it'll come out nice and clean. If your plate's in the way, your plate steel's in the way, just tap it out of the way. Because your bushing can get hung up on the plate steel and cause problems.
I think you're smushing that.
I'm smushing the whole arm. Oh yeah, that's not what I wanted to do. Shaft's out. Yay. There's that bushing. Here's our shaft. I was trying not to screw this up on camera. That ain't working too well. I don't know how much I squeezed that arm. I'm guessing that ain't a good thing. Okay. Let's... we got to get this bushing out of this end now. So here's what we found that works. We've got 4 of these plates. I've got 2 of them oriented perpendicularly to the press bed, and the top 2 are parallel to the press bed. This arm can come up, and then I gotta take my hands out. We're gonna take one of the side shafts out of here and set that off to the side. And take a couple of zip ties. Or one big zip tie. If you've got one big one, that'll do the job. Open that up. And place our arm in here like so. One zip tie through here. And then another over the end of it, and through the end of this one. Is it a little suspect? Yeah. Did it work? Also, yeah. Okay. So the end of our bushing is underneath, or sitting below this. We want to, again, tighten the shaft up on our bearing puller, and then we'll zip tie this side pretty tight, and it should stay there. And we're going to pause it for a second because I got to lift this whole assembly up closer to our jack here.
Okay.
Okay, we've got our bed plate here, and we have just a bolt and a washer sitting on the end of our bushing. And start pressing this one out. Let's get down that far. Bring it back up. And then use something else in between, like a spacer. An old wrist pin. And a Ford small block. That'll do. Come against something. Okay, this plate's too far in. So see if I can get it now. Almost. The whole thing in. I think that should clear. There we go. Oops, almost got it. There we go. And there's our other bushing out. And our spacer and press junk. So that's both bushings out. And we're going to pause for a moment and get this contraption apart.
Okay.
Alright, so we've got our shaft and our A-arm, and now's probably the best time to do the cleaning. So I'm going to take these to the sink and just give them a quick scrub. Wipe the oil off of them. Any old dirt still hanging out on these, and shine them up a little bit if I can. And it looks like the bushings came out fairly clean. There's very little left behind in the bushing bore. They're nice and shiny in there, so we're going to clean these up and we'll be back. Alright, here we are again, back with the arm, and we have everything laid out in a manner that we won't get it mixed up or confused, or at least I won't get it mixed up and confused. You might be a little smarter than I am. I need reminders. So we got the front and the rear labeled, and I have our front bushing, which is the solid one. It's going to come in like that. And I have our rear bushing, which is the split bushing. It's got two different parts. Okay, so we're going to take the collars out, and we're going to start getting all this lubed up with our silicone grease here, so that we can start getting this stuff reassembled. Now, as far as I can tell, there's a certain order in which all this stuff needs to be reassembled in order to get it to actually go back together. And my rag. So we've got our silicone grease. It comes with the bearing kit. And first order of business is getting the first half of our rearmost bushing back in. The front half of the rear bushing. The front half of the rear half of the bushings. The front something. Anybody confused yet? And there's no real good clean way to do this. You basically kind of smear it with your finger, unless you got some gloves you want to put on. I am not that particular. Okay. And that's gonna go in here. Presses right in. And then we take our shaft, we slide it in, take a washer, and put a little bit of that in here. A little bit of that. If I got any left in here, just a little bit. Okay, and then our thin washer goes on. And that should drop through that, and we can put this front bushing in. I've got to clip open another one of these. I get everything out of here. Good to the last drop, eh? Get as much out of there as I can. And we really want to smear this one up pretty well. Sometimes these don't open enough for my liking. I want to be able to smear more. All right. Once this is all, that's plastic. Oops. Fill into my grease. Get that out of there. Once this one's all good and coated, actually I'll take a little bit and smear this front edge, because this has got to be pushed through the eyelet in the front of the shaft. So let's get our press set up again to do that part of the job. Be right back. Okay, here it is at the press. Got our bearing plate on the bottom, and we've got something large enough in diameter on top of the bushing so that it'll go around the threads in this center shaft. And nope, just squeezing the arm. Nope, that ain't gonna work. Okay, we got it set up the other way. It looks like we're going to be using the old zip tie trick again. The only thing we got to make sure of is when our bushing comes through the bottom side of here, that it's got enough room to expand out the other end, this lip on the bottom. Also, the shaft is not in the center, right? The aluminum sleeve, I'm sorry, the aluminum bushing sleeve is not in this bushing right now, because I want to be able to give this this ridge on the opposite end. I want some room for this thing to shrink. All right, I don't want to squeeze it between the aluminum center bushing and the aluminum arm. I want it to be able to squeeze, have somewhere to go, some room to compress into, and then expand again once it gets to the other side. So let's give it a shot again. See how it works. Starting to slide in. Oh, also I forgot to say, I also greased the inside bore of this arm. So as it's passing through, it's not moving against the dry surface. It is moving against a lubricated surface. I think I'm out of room there. Doesn't look like the shaft has anywhere else to go, so maybe I better get a different spacer here. Actually, it's got a little bit more room to go. That, what's it looking like? Still got a little more room to sink here, so I'll squeeze it a little bit further, see if it comes out the other side. Gotta give it a tap, give it a little. Are we out? I think we're out. Come on over there. Oops. There we are. Okay. We got our bushing out the whole way through. Here we can see it's dry. So it did pretty much take the lube off of it, but it's not torn. It's in one piece when it came out the other end. So I'm happy with that. If I'm really concerned with how lubricated that is, and I kind of am, I'll just take some of the lube off the other side and dress it with that. There we have it. Smear this around a little bit. Now we can go back over here to where I have everything set up on the basement floor. Okay, there we are back on the ground, and what we're gonna do here, we'll grease up the other half of our rear bushing. And we'll slide that in. I know this is boring, I'm sorry. Maybe I should have greased this up and then started the camera, but then I'd have grease all over my camera. Oh, I forgot. Do the inside. That was, I forgot to say earlier maybe, that I got the insides of these greased up too. So that when it comes time to pushing oh hell, these things through the middle, that hopefully they'll move through quite easily. Let me wipe this sucker. Wipe my finger off a little bit. push that in. My hand, I think. Yep, that's in. Okay. Once that's in, you know what I'll do? Why not? Man, I about used up a whole other tube of this grease. They only give you 3 with the package, so.
Hello.
Hello.
What's going on?
Making a video.
Okay. You're on the website.
Yeah. So, maybe I'm using too much of this. I don't know. I'd rather use too much than not enough. But I got extra. I got extra if I need it. And what might work? Whoops. Get off there. Son of a. What might work better for that would be using an old bushing maybe. Get it started. And then let's try this. I'll have to use this in a nut probably to squeeze it in the rest of the way. No biggie. Let me get another one of those things of grease. Hold on. Okay. Come on. Here's our front bushing sleeve. Okay. Get it started. Ooh. Man alive. I'm gonna have to put this in the press and press that through. But it's through the solid bushing in the front, so it's fine. Let me set that up to do that after I wipe all the silicone off myself. Alright, before I put this on the press, I just figured I would use the the nut here to press the rest of the center tube through the rest of this pushing. There we go. Once it snugs up, that's it. And then I am gonna loosen it up just a touch so that the actual torquing of these are done on the car. That, and they need thread locker applied to them as well. These those nuts. We'll press the rest of this in here on the press real quick. All right. So I've just pressed this down even with the end of the shaft, and all I'm actually going to do is just take one of these old bushings and use that as a spacer and cram this rest of the way in. There we are. Boy, noise. And we can get rid of this old bushing and get this out of the way. And there we have it. Alright, now the only thing we have left to do is take the last washer and the last nut and turn this back on. And again, I'm just going to install this loosely like, because it doesn't really need to be tightened yet. It needs to be Loctited once it's on the car. Once this is on the car, these nuts can come off. Loctite can be applied. The nuts can go back on, and then you want to do this with the car at ride height. So once everything's back together, right, drive around the block, give it a minute for the suspension to settle, and then you can tighten the lower control arm, torque the lower control arm bolts, and then Loctite these nuts and torque them. And depending on the year of the manual, it's going to tell you something different. I'm just going to go with 38. I think that's what it said for the 87 model manual. So that's what it's going to get. So we can already see it's difficult to spin this, right? You can, if you really want to, use a tool, but and that's a good sign. We just don't want it flopping around. Alright, so there we have it. Next order of business, ball joints. So let me grab that. Alright, now that's what I'm using. Mevitech or Mevitech, I don't know how you say it. Not the most expensive stuff on the market, not the cheapest stuff on the market. It's middle of the road-ish. And these replacements all pretty much go on the same way, whereas the originals were riveted on. These replacements all get bolted in. If you've ever done a GM control arm, this ain't the only time. This isn't the only application where they've riveted upper ball joints. It was pretty common practice. All right, so we take our arm, we make sure we're going the right way down. We can put our ball joint through. We'll take our, I think these are quarter 28 bolts. Quarter 28 bolts and nuts and washers. Slide those in like so. And then we'll put our washers on our nuts. And these are all squeezed. These are lock nut, kind of like a lock nut. Once the nuts are formed, then they're screws just a little bit to make them sort of lock on to the threads of the fastener. However, what I find is most of the time it makes them easier to cross thread, and they're a pain in the ass. There we go. So that, there's a trick. Little trick to it. You gotta get past, but once they're started on the threads and it looks like they're fairly straight, you can run them on. I don't know what to torque them to, but just look up the torque spec for like a grade 8 quarter 28 fine thread fastener and torque them to that. That would be my advice. That one don't want to go on there. So I've talked about that long enough, and it's going to take me long enough to get these damn things on that I'm not so sure. I'm just going to cut the camera right now because I've already spent too much time on this subject. Well, that one went on fairly easy. Look at that. That one didn't get squozed enough. And we're going to move on to the lower arms, so you get the idea how the ball joints and the bushings are done. We can move on to the lowers. All right, here we are back at the press again, and we've got some pieces from our ball joint service kit stacked up here on top of a bushing. Okay, and we got to make sure that the ID of this is larger than the OD of the bushing that we're pushing out. And there's two types. There's two bushings, one like this, one like this. And these pieces fit over top of that. They're slightly larger than that old bushing. And underneath we've got something that's slightly smaller than the bushing. This is a 1 1/16 inch deep socket. And we need the extra length here because of the way that this arm is shaped. We have to make sure that we've got enough room for this to come down without hitting our press bed here. So we're gonna start the squeezing, and it should press that bushing out. Okay, just started to tear the rubber on the bottom of the bushing, and I want to make sure that that socket's going to go up inside the hole. It's not going to come in contact with the aluminum arm. We're just going to keep pushing until it frees up and slides out. I got a little bit more space yet, but I think we're probably through. Let's check. There we go. This thing is out. Now all we got to do is take our hammer, wherever I left that. Okay, hammer, where did you go? There you are. And we'll just try not to hit the arm. And got our socket out. And now we're left with a nice clean hole there. Doesn't look like there was any corrosion inside of that got between the rubber and the aluminum. A little bit of pieces of rubber left over, but little bit. They come right out. There we have it. So now I got to do the same thing and get this. I call it the daisy bushing because it's shaped like a flower. I gotta get that out. So we'll stack this up again. I might have to bring my press back up. Probably have to, well, maybe not. There we go. Let's knock that down. Put that down just till it touches. Line everything back up. That looks good. Looks good, feels good. Let's give it a push. You can hear it start to pop as the rubber lets go of its grip. Okay. I think we're through. And there's our other bushing. Oop, a little bit of aluminum on that one. There we have it. Okay. Again, nice clean hole with which we can place our new bushings. Actually, I'm going to run upstairs and I'm just going to clean this arm quick and then we'll be back. Alright, here we are with the lower arms and the bushings wherever I set them. Ah, there they are. These are a bit easier to get back together than the upper arms. It's got a lot to do with the fact that the bushings that come in your kit are identical. They are split bushings. And they all carry the same part number. So, this will go quickly. What we're going to do is separate the bushings from the sleeves. Sleeves, that's the name of those. That term continued to escape me earlier. And I ran out of the little packs of the silicone lube that come with them. So, I have some silicone lube in a tub. That's what we're going to use. It gushes and it feels like the exact same thing. It is Dow industrial stuff. And first thing that we're going to do is goop one half of our bushing and turn our control arm up and just give it a start. Push it in straight. Okay. Once it's in a little part of the way, just work your way around it with a hammer and tap it home the whole way around. Ta-da! Now we're going to do that to that side. Okay, once we got both of our inside bushings in, then we can take one and goop up a half that'll go on the outside. A little bit of sawdust or something in there, I don't know. Maybe a wood splinter, I don't know. Okay. And once that's gooped up, we're going to take this over to our press. Okay, we're coming over to our press. We're just going to rest this side against the bed plate like so. Take the other half that we gooped up to go on the top. And give it a little push. Once it's in there and it's started fairly straight, we knock that side in. Once that side's knocked in, flip the arm around, get the other half of the bushing, goop it up, and do the same. Alright, since we got both halves of the bearings in on both sides, all we gotta do after that is take some more of our grease. We're gonna goop up the inside of our bearings, bushings. Oy, bushings. We're gonna goop up our sleeves that go through the center, and then we're gonna put those both in. Okay. We took a finger of our grease and we gooped up the inside of our, I almost said bearings, bushings, and we gooped up our sleeves, so everything is nice and gooped up. Gooped up? Who? Gupta. Yeah, I know him. Gooped up. Gupta. Good dude. Anyway, so take one of our sleeves. And we just take the side of the hammerhead. And drive it in just like that. I like to use the side. It spreads the impact out a little bit. You don't wind up dinging up the end of your sleeve or anything. Okay, turn it over. Start the next one. Drive it in. And then when you're done, wipe the rest of the goop off everything, and we can move on to putting the ball joints back in. Okay, so it's time to put one of these inside one of these, but we're going to do a little bit of math first. Okay, typical ball joint interference fit should be about 1/2 thou to maybe 2.5 thou. That's, you want the ball joint to be, what I mean is you want this to be about 1/2 thou to 2.5 thou in diameter, larger in diameter than that hole is. And use a caliper, dial caliper, and measure one, then measure the other. Yeah, do the math. You separate, you subtract the smaller number from the larger number and you get your interference. I've already taken the liberty of doing that measurement, and I got about 2.065 and about 2.090. And when you do the math, you get 25 thousandths difference, which is about 10 times greater than what we really want. So the only option I see here is making this hole a bit bigger to fit that in a little better. So I'm going to take some sandpaper and just going to start working my way around this hole. You can use files. I've used files on steel control arms in the past. Whatever you want to do. Just go slow, take your time, so you don't make the hole larger than the ball joint, because that's bad. The only thing that retains these is the interference fit, that friction. So if you wind up making the hole larger than the ball joint, it's going to fall out. And then what are you going to do? I don't have a solution for that.
The
So,
only solution for that's a new control arm.
yeah, there you go. Alright, so I'm going to go with this for a while. And I'm going to stop and measure every so often until I measure that difference down to about 2.5 thousandths. And then we're going to press this in there. Dig. So we'll be back when we're ready for that.
Go.
Okay. So, 25 thousandths. That's about 1/2 mile in machining tolerances. So, what do we do? I got I got my cylinder hone out, lubricated the stones and ran that around in here and opened this hole up about 15 thousandths, which leaves us a 10 thousandths interference fit. That's still way over the 2.5 thousandths we're looking for. However, the stones in a cross section that's this thin often leave the sides of the hole sort of what I like to refer to as barreled. Okay, they're convex. The inside of this passage is, you can feel it, it's a bit of a convex shape. So out in the middle, or out towards the edges here, it's closer to what we need the measurement to be, but in the very middle it's about 10 thousandths tighter. So the specs on automotive service componentry interference fit are abysmal, and that's why I recommend measuring whenever you have a press fit component first. So anyway, with the difference in the sizes of our components here, this is probably the best that we can do given what we've got to work with. So this operation is going to be more of a hybrid of press fit and press forming. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking and we're going to do this. Now, you can try this on the car with one of these kits. However, I would definitely check your measurements on your arms first. Check the measurements of your arms and your ball joints first, because I mean, you might run into some real trouble with one of these, especially trying to cram a ball joint through an arm that's 25 thousandths over. That's a considerable difference. That's going to take a ton of force with one of these, and I'm not so sure if it can cut it, or if your arms can cut it. I don't think my arms would cut it. So we got to pick something here that's going to be larger in diameter than our ball joint. So we'll put a cup there. We got to get some other parts here. We definitely want to push our control arm independently of our ball joint, and we want it to push straight down over top. So pick a combination of parts that's going to enable you to do that. Tension on here. You can take a hammer, give them a tap in the direction you think they need to go, keep it all centered. Alright, looks really good. Let's see how this goes. Totally bent my press part. Yeah.
Want me to walk behind there?
No. Do not walk behind here. Got it.
Yes, sir.
It's in.
Jesus.
I think it's tight.
Scared the
Yeah. Remember, You remember how I said the center of that arm was kind of barreled?
Mm-hmm. How was that slipping past?
It was slipping past that. And you can see where it took a little bit of it with it. There's a little bit of aluminum that it pulled off the inside of that as it went through.
But it's on.
But there, it's in. It's on the whole way around. Okay, so now that that's in there, I'm going to take a little bit of additional grease. Alright. I'm going to spread some more love in here.
A little extra grease never
Doesn't have too much grease in there. And we need to take our dust boot. Our dust boot! If you watch German submarine movies, there's a little bit of aluminum I want to kind of peel off of here. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I gotta do this. So we got our dust boot and we gotta push that over. It fits tightly over the top of the joint. I'm gonna cram this down. Hey, come on. There we go. There we go. Dust boots on. And then where'd that castle nut go? Yeah, alright. And then your box should come with a Zerk fitting, a greased fitting for the bottom. Don't forget to install that. You can do it now, or you can do it when the arm is on the car. So, one more step of this whole process completed. Wait, I forgot something. You know what we didn't do? We didn't finish this little bugger. Why don't you pause that? We'll go get some sockets. Okay, similar to how we press bushings out of our control arms. These little buggers for the sway bar end links, or lower sway bar end link mounts. We're going to take a deep socket. We're going to take this. We're going to take a socket that's smaller in diameter than our bushing. And we're going to put them all together and see what comes out.
You want to flip that top socket?
Huh?
You want to flip that top socket?
No.
Okay.
No. I kind of want to leave this small section down that's going to push the center of the bushing out, right? I don't want to do it like that because that's not going to push the center of the bushing.
Okay.
The center of the bushings, the sleeve in the center is going to get stuck in the socket. Yeah. And let's see if it makes a big bang this time. It won't. Well, it did push the sleeve out anyway. Whoop. I'm gonna push the rest of the rubber through. Hi. That's definitely through. Yeah. Ugly rubber bits. Well, that's gonna be fun. It's stuck in my socket. If it ain't one thing, it's another. This rotten car has fought me the whole time. Everything I want to do. There we go. Now, garbage. scrap metal. And now oh, look, just the right size for me to hammer this out now. Get the handle stuck in here right.
Ta-da!
And that's what we're left with. Take a knife or something, wire brush, maybe a brake cylinder hone. And we can clean this stuff out of here with that. Or maybe a blasting cabinet might hose all that out of there. I have to see. I'll probably just take a knife and cut out as much of this as possible and then get in there with a brake cylinder hone and...
Or one of them small half-round files.
Oh, yeah. A half-round file, maybe. Good idea. So that's that. That's empty. Our control arms are rebuilt. Finally, we can start putting the front end of this thing back together. So that's it for now. We're going to start reassembling the front suspension in the next video. Until then, I'm Tim Toolman. This has been Car Show and Tell. Thank you for tuning in. Please feel free to like and subscribe. Ring my bell. Touch my little thingy. Alright. We'll see you next time. Hope you learned something today, what to do or maybe what not to do. Take care. We'll see you.